Hi, we're going to be concentrating in this segment on the human nervous system. In particular today, we're looking at nerves and the reflex arc. These are very important ideas and concepts and often come up in an exam paper. So grade 12s, pay attention. Remember last week we spoke about the human nervous system being divided into two basic areas. I need to reinforce with you that there are not two nervous systems. There's not a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system that are separate from each other. They're all the same nervous system. It's just that we find the nerves of the central nervous system in the brain and in the spinal cord, and nerves emanating or emerging from the central nervous system to the extended parts of the body we call the peripheral nervous system. But it's very important to understand that it's all one nervous system. So, what does a nerve look like? This is a micrograph or a photograph taken down a microscope showing nerve tissue. And what you see is a central body of the nerve cell. There you can see its nucleus, I think, right in the middle there. But unlike other cells, nerve cells have long processes or parts of their body that extend from the central cell structure, the central body of the cell. And some of these nerve processes can be very long indeed. For example, you have got nerves that stretch from your fingertips, one single nerve, all the way to your spinal cord. And you can start to see why people would have nerve damage and not be able to feel extends parts of their body if they've cut those nerves, because it's one single nerve that moves from, say, the tip of your finger here all the way down to your spinal cord. So nerves are unlike other cells in that they have the central nerve body, but they have these long processes that extend from the body of the nerve outwards. And so this is a diagrammatic structure. Here is that nerve body that we saw. It's sometimes also called a soma. That's another name for the body of the nerve, the cell body. That cell body has the nucleus in it. And then there are two kinds of processes. Processes called dendrites and processes called axons. Now here by processes we don't mean things that function in a certain way. We mean things that stick out, project or process from a central body. Dendrites receive nerve impulses or messages. Axons send on the nerve message to another nerve. And we see that the nerve or the area of the axon is covered by something called a Schwann cell, which acts as a sheath around the cell. And we see that these cells are wrapped around at intervals, and the little space between these Schwann cells is called the node of Ranvier. Axon terminals are where the message or the impulse would be passed to another nerve. This is an interesting picture in that it's a cross-section. It's taking us in a transverse way through a particular part of the axon, and it shows here's the axon, and it shows that the Schwann cell is a very thin cell that is wrapped many times around the central part of the nerve. And this Schwann cell insulates the nerve, it protects it and supports it as well. Sometimes it is known as one of the glial cells that also supports the nerve process, and it speeds up the propagation of the nervous impulse along the nerve. You'll very often, because this is such a long process, you'll find that there are other cells that actually support the nerve. As I said, they are called glial cells. But what happens is a nerve impulse is going to arrive at the dendrites. It's going to be passed through the cell body to the axon, and it's going to jump along the length of the axon from node of Ranvier to node of Ranvier until it reaches the axon terminal where it is propagated or sent on to the next nerve cell at what we call a synapse. So a synapse, this is the axon terminal, this is where the one nerve ends, this is the dendrite of the next nerve. We can see that the nerves don't actually touch. They're very close to each other, but at the end of the nerve, we have what we call synaptic vesicles that fill up with a substance called neurotransmitter. And as the nervous impulse reaches the end or the axon terminal of the nerve, it stimulates these vesicles to pop open, and the neurotransmitter moves across the synapse to the next nerve, and as it is absorbed by the next nerve, so it starts the nerve impulse in the new nerve. That is how the nerves are actually joined. They in fact do not touch. There is a space called a synapse. You need to understand this diagram. More about reflex arcs after the break.